Welcome back to the deep dive. To start today, I actually want to ask you to visualize something for a second.
Okay, I'm ready.
So you're walking down a long, carpeted hallway. It's quiet, like maybe a little too quiet. And on almost every single door handle, you see these little colorful flags hanging there. Some are red, some are green.
Oh, right. It's a scene we've all walked through 100 times.
Yeah.
The universal language of the hotel corridor.
It is. But have to admit, when I first looked at this stack of research for today's deep dive, I was a bit skeptical.
You didn't think there was much there.
Right. I thought, okay, we're talking about a rectangular piece of cardboard here. How deep can this really go? We're pulling from encyclopedic records and industry definitions about a piece of plastic.
It sounds incredibly mundane on the surface.
Exactly. But then I started reading the sources, and there's jazz legends and criminal investigations and even the psychology of user interface design. I realized I was completely wrong. This isn't just a piece of cardstock.
No, it's a boundary. It's actually a really powerful boundary. We often overlook the humble door hanger just because it's so disposable. But if you analyze it, as we're going to do today, you start to realize it's one of the very few objects left in our modern society that functions as a strict gatekeeper.
A gatekeeper for our personal space.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
manages the flow between the public world and your most private moments.
And that is exactly the mission for this deep dive. We are going to look at how this simple die-cut rectangle functions as a communication tool, as a security device, a strangely aggressive marketing weapon, and, as we'll see later, a shield that has tragically been used to hide some truly dark activities.
Right. It's a tool that grants silence. But as we found in the sources, that silence can definitely be a double-edged sword.
So let's just skip the physical description. I mean, everyone listening knows what a door hanger looks like. It hooks on a knob. Let's talk about the function.
The classic hotel context.
Yes, the most famous use case. It's a binary communication system, right? You have makeup room on one side and do not disturb on the other.
And you have to think about the power dynamic there for a second. When you are in a hotel, you are in a strange building surrounded by staff who have a master key to your room. They have legal access to the space you're sleeping in.
Which is actually kind of weird when you say it out loud.
It is. The only thing stopping them from walking in while you're in the shower or working is that flimsy piece of plastic.
Green means come in, red means stay out.
But it's more than just a traffic light. It's a nonverbal command. It allows a guest to assert dominance over the space without ever having to actually speak to a human being.
Right.
It creates what the hospitality industry calls a sacred pact. If that sign is visible, the staff is trained to treat that wooden door as if it's a brick wall.
You know, that actually reminds me of a very specific detail in the research that I absolutely loved. It wasn't about a hotel, though. It was about a jazz club.
Oh, the Thelonious Monk story?
Yes. This is such a brilliant example of that command for silence you're talking about.
Mhm.
So picture this. New York City, 1968, the Village Gate. Thelonious Monk is playing there. He's an absolute legend.
A total icon.
Right. And obviously backstage at a jazz club in the late 60s is chaotic.
Yeah.
People smoke noise everywhere.
Literally the exact opposite of a private sanctuary.
Exactly.
Right.
But Monk needed his headspace before a show. So the source noted that he actually used a custom door hanger that just simply said, please no guests.
It's so fascinating because Monk was a public figure. He was literally there to perform for a crowd, but even he needed a mechanism to carve out a micro territory of privacy.
A little bubble.
Right. That little sign did the heavy lifting for him so he didn't have to be rude to people or hire a massive bodyguard to stand there. The cardboard did the work.
The utility of silence. And the sources point out that this utility extends beyond just hospitality and entertainment, too.
Like in schools.
Yeah, schools use them during testing to signal students and staff. It changes the entire rules of the hallway from loud to whisper. But there's one use case in the notes that I honestly wasn't sure I believed at first.
Which one was that?
The idea of using the door hanger as a theft deterrent. The sources claim people will deliberately leave the do not disturb sign on the door, even when they leave the hotel, specifically to trick potential thieves.
Oh, that is absolutely a real strategy.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Think about it from a risk assessment perspective. If you are a thief or even just a dishonest staff member walking down a hallway, you are looking for the path of least resistance.
Okay.
A door with no sign is a question mark. A door with a makeup room sign is an open invitation. You know for a fact the guest is gone.
But a do not disturb sign implies there's a human being behind that door right at that moment.
Correct. It creates immediate uncertainty. Is the guest sleeping? Are they in the bathroom? Are they standing right on the other side of the door? It raises the risk profile of that room significantly for a thief.
Wow.
So by leaving the sign up, you are essentially hacking the social signal to create a layer of security for your valuables.
That makes total sense now that you lay it out.
Uh,
It's like psychological armor.
Ex-
But, and this is where the research took a turn that I really wasn't prepared for, that same psychological armor works for the bad guys too.
Yeah, we have to talk about the other side of the coin here. If you have a sign that legally and socially forbids anyone from checking on a room, you have effectively created a black box.
A blind spot.
You've created a massive blind spot in the building's security apparatus.
The sources refer to this as the dark side of privacy.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about people sneaking in an extra guest or smoking in a non-smoking room. We're talking about serious criminal concealment.
We are. The Do Not Disturb sign has been explicitly blamed and cited in police reports regarding suspicious deaths, drug manufacturing, and homicides. Because what does the sign buy a criminal? It buys them time.
Like that case in 2009 on the cruise ship. An elderly couple disappeared, and the source notes that the investigation was delayed significantly simply because the sign was left on the door.
Right. And on a cruise ship, staff are usually highly attentive. They check the rooms constantly. But because that sign was up, the cabin steward respected the pact. They didn't enter for days.
Wow.
That delay meant that by the time anyone realized something was terribly wrong, the trail was already cold. The sign literally acted as a shield against discovery.
But the example that really stopped me in my tracks, and I think the one that fundamentally changed the entire hotel industry, was the 2017 Las Vegas shooting.
That is undeniably the pivotal moment in the history of this object. We have to look at the mechanics of what happened there. Stephen Paddock, the shooter, didn't just snap one afternoon. This was a highly calculated, prepared attack.
The logistics mentioned in the report are just staggering. He brought in 10 suitcases.
10 suitcases filled with a stockpile of rifles and ammunition. Now you have to ask yourself, how do you get an arsenal like that into a standard hotel room over the course of several days without a housekeeper noticing a literal stack of guns on the bed?
Keep them out.
You utilize the Do Not Disturb sign. He kept that sign on his door essentially the entire time he was staging the room.
It's chilling.
It prevented the staff from performing their routine cleaning, which meant it prevented them from acting as the eyes and ears of the hotel security.
It's terrifying to think that a flimsy piece of plastic provided the cover needed for something so horrific. But this brings up a big question I had while reading those aftermath reports. Did hotels actually change anything? Because I still see these signs everywhere when I travel.
They did, but the shift is subtle to the average guest. The industry had a massive wake-up call after Vegas, that absolute right to privacy that we talked about earlier.
The secret pact.
It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Most major hotel chains instituted brand new policies after 2017. They're often called 24-hour rules or welfare checks.
So even if I have the Do Not Disturb sign up, they're coming in anyway.
Eventually, yes. If that sign stays on a door for more than 24 hours, and sometimes it's 12 depending on the specific, property, security, or management is now legally mandated to knock and enter,
They just override the sign.
they have to visually verify the room is safe and the guest is okay. The Do Not Disturb sign is no longer a shield, it's just a temporary request.
That is a massive shift in how we handle public spaces. The tragedy essentially broke the pact we started this deep dive with.
It had to. The liability and the public safety risk were just too high to ignore.
So we've looked at the door hanger as a way to keep the world out. It's a barrier for privacy or a barrier for dark secrecy. But I want to bridge over to a completely different use case from the sources where the door hanger is actually used to force the outside world in.
You're talking about when the door hanger leaves the hotel corridor and shows up on your residential front porch.
Exactly. The guerrilla marketing war. We've all been there. You come home from work, you're tired, and there's a giant glossy picture of a pepperoni pizza hanging from your front door handle.
Direct-to-door advertising. It's a fascinating and, frankly, cutthroat industry. It exists because it solves a very specific problem that direct mail, like your standard junk mail, simply cannot solve.
The problem being that I throw my junk mail away without even looking at it.
Precisely. We are all trained to filter our mail. We stand over the recycling bin and toss the envelopes without opening them. But the door hanger has a unique psychological advantage, what the industry calls the guaranteed impression.
I really want you to explain that term. Guaranteed impression.
It relies entirely on physical interaction. To enter your own home, you have to turn the knob. You cannot turn the knob without touching the advertisement. You have to remove it with your hand.
Yeah, you can't ignore it.
In that split second where you grab it and look at it just to see what it is the advertiser has won, you have absorbed the marketing message.
That is maddeningly brilliant when you think about it. It utilizes the friction of the physical world.
Yeah.
You can't just swipe it away like an email. You have to physically disengage it from your house.
And unlike your mailbox, which is totally stuffed full of bills and competing flyers, the door handle is a solo ad space. There is no competition in the envelope, so to speak. It's a single advertising message.
And it must be incredibly cost-effective for driving traffic or local brand awareness. But I've always wondered about the actual logistics of this. It seems incredibly inefficient to pay people to physically walk up to thousands of individual houses. And honestly, half the time I see these flyers blowing into the gutter down the street.
You've hit on the dirty little secret of that industry. For a long time, companies wasted millions of dollars on this because of a practice called dumping.
Dumping.
Yeah, they'd hire teenagers or extremely cheap labor to distribute, say, 5,000 flyers.
Yeah.
And the distributors would just dump stacks of them in a dumpster or a storm drain and go back and say they did the job.
So how did the industry fix it? Because the source mentions this has actually gone high-tech recently.
It's surprisingly sophisticated now. The big distribution companies use precise GPS tracking. Every single distributor carries a tracker on their route. The client, like the pizza place or the local real estate agent, can literally log into a portal and see a digital map of exactly where the walker went right down to the individual driveway.
Wow. So they can audit the entire road.
Exactly. And some even require proof of performance photos.
What does that mean?
The walker has to pull out their phone and snap a picture of the hanger actually on the door every few houses to prove they are doing it. It turned a super shady, unverifiable industry into a highly data-driven one.
Okay, so the marketing is effective and trackable. But there is a huge downside here that brings us right back to the security conversation we just had. The source called it the burglar beacon.
Yes, this is the ultimate tension. Marketers love door hangers, but home security experts absolutely hate them.
Because if I'm on vacation for a week and I have 3 pizza flyers and a landscaping ad just hanging on my door gathering dust.
It is a neon sign telling the entire neighborhood nobody is home. It flags the property as completely unattended. If a hanger sits there for days, it creates a massive security risk for the residents.
But wait, isn't that a terrible marketing strategy for the brand? If your pizza flyer gets my house robbed, I'm probably not going to order a pepperoni lovers from you when I get back.
You would think so. It's a massive reputational risk. In fact, many cities have passed strict bylaws banning door hangers specifically for this reason. They create litter and they actively lower neighborhood safety.
But they still do it.
The return on investment for the businesses is apparently high enough that they take the legal and reputational risk anyway.
It's amazing how this one object swings wildly between extremes. In a hotel, it protects the room and signals you are there. On a front porch, it exposes the home and signals you are gone.
Context is everything with this tool.
So we've covered the history, the criminal concealment, and the guerrilla marketing. I want to look at the future before we wrap up. Is the cardboard rectangle dying out? Because I feel like everything else in our lives is going digital.
It is certainly evolving.
Right.
If you go to a high-end modern hotel right now, you might not find a physical hanger on the handle. You'll find a digital panel on the wall by your bed.
The electronic buttons, I've seen those.
Right. You press a button that says privacy, and a red indicator light turns on in the hallway outside your door. It's cleaner, it's sleeker, and it really helps the staff because they can just look down the whole hallway and see the lights instantly.
It feels a little colder, though. There's something very tactile and deliberate about physically hanging the sign on the door.
Hotels know that too. And that's why even with the shift to tech, they are doubling down on the branding of the privacy experience when they do use physical signs. Did you see the note in the sources about Embassy Suites?
The design contest from 2007.
Yeah. Back in 2007, they ran a massive public contest letting everyday people design their new Do Not Disturb signs.
Which is brilliant marketing, actually. Getting the public invested in your hotel supplies.
It proves that the sign isn't just a utility tool anymore. It's a personality piece. Think about it. It's the very first thing you see when you approach your room and the last thing you see when you leave. Hotels use it to set a specific tone, whether it's funny or serious or luxurious.
Speaking of tone and design, there was one final nugget in the research that I, as a bit of a computer nerd, found really satisfying. It seems the door hanger has actually migrated out of the physical world entirely and into our software.
The Firefox example.
Right. The encyclopedic source mentions that in computer user interface design, or UI, there's a specific digital element officially called a door hanger.
It's a perfect example of digital skeuomorphism, taking a familiar concept from the real physical world and applying it to digital design so users intuitively understand how to interact with it.
But help me visualize this. Where have I seen a door hanger in my web browser?
Okay, so imagine you're using Firefox. Specifically, the source mentioned this in relation to version 85. You go to a website and it asks to save your password. That little notification panel doesn't just pop up in the dead center of the screen and block everything you're reading, right?
No, it usually drops down from the little key icon or the address bar at the top.
Exactly. It literally hangs from the digital handle. In UI terms, that notification panel is technically called a door hanger. It's attached to a specific element, the handle, and it provides context just for that one specific action.
So unlike a standard pop-up, which is basically like someone jumping in front of your face, waving their arms.
A pop-up is like an aggressive salesperson tackling you in the hotel lobby. A door hanger is a polite note left on the handle. It demands your attention, but it's highly respectful of your current context.
It is wild.
It really is. A piece of die-cut cardboard from the 20th century literally dictates the architecture of how we interact with modern web browsers today.
It really shows that good design is universal. Whether it's paper or pixels, we clearly need reliable ways to manage our boundaries.
We absolutely do. And I think that brings us right back to the big picture of what we've been looking at.
So let's synthesize all of this. We've gone from Thelonious Monk carving out silence backstage to a tragic staging ground in Las Vegas to high-tech GPS tracking for pizza flyers and finally into the UI architecture of the internet. What is the ultimate through line here?
I think the real through line is control. The door hanger is a primitive analog control mechanism in a world that is just becoming increasingly chaotic and constantly connected.
It's a way to hit pause on the outside world.
It is. But as we learned with the Vegas tragedy and those new hotel security policies, that pause button is no longer absolute. We are actively trading our privacy for safety.
That's the real tension, isn't it? We desperately want to be left alone, but we also want to be perfectly safe. And apparently you just can't always have both at the same time.
And that's the exact thought I want to leave the listener with today, because we live in an age of digital surveillance, smart cameras, constant GPS tracking. The Do Not Disturb sign was really one of the last true vestiges of total unquestioned privacy. But now even that is eroding. So the question you have to ask yourself is this. Is the death of that absolute privacy just a necessary luxury we can no longer afford for our own security? Or are we slowly losing the last line of defense we had for our personal space?
Something to really mull over the next time you hang that little plastic sign on your door. Are you just trying to sleep in, or are you making a fundamental statement about your boundaries? Thanks for joining us as we analyze the sources on this deep dive.
Keep questioning the everyday things around you.